welcome to Okon Bros. This is Eric.
And I'm Michael.
We have Jay Campbell from the company Dime on today, and we are really excited because
Welcome, Jay.
Hey guys, thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming on. Eric and I have been excited for weeks over this, and we're honored that you joined us. So we have a lot to talk about.
Yeah, so the company Dime, I mean, we have so much appreciation for what you guys do and how you serve the travel industry. And I just want to say I respect having that paywall so much that it's just much respect with that because that's hard. That's hard to do.
Well, let's have what is the company Dime, which by the way is like one of the coolest names for like an online magazine. What is the company Dime? Explain to everyone.
Thank you. Yes. Well, so it's basically business-to-business information for people who are in charge of managing business travel, policies, expenses, supplier relations. That's our kind of target audience, is that corporate travel procurement person or manager. And of course, if they're reading something, their partners and their suppliers need to read it too. So that's actually the secondary sort of larger part of our audience, is all the suppliers and distributors who participate in the business travel industry.
How did you get to this? Like most people in travel, everyone loves to travel, right? But like, how
did you start a business travel magazine?
Did travel suck you in, or were you always in travel? Like, tell us about your journey from the start of like how you started the company Dime.
Well, it's definitely sucked me back in when I've tried to leave. Yeah, no, I mean, the path is sort of, I think, typical for a lot of journalists, right? You kind of, maybe not all of them, but, many of them get kind of the interest in the news at a young age. I was a paper boy growing up in Massachusetts and a big Red Sox fan, still am. And my first...
Patriots?
No, not really.
Oh, all right. Please continue talking. Please. I'm teasing all the Patriots fans out there. It's just a joke.
They probably deserve it.
No, it's not.
I'm a Tampa Bay Buccaneers fan, and I've never been to Tampa Bay, so go, whatever.
But I could care less about football.
Eric's not a football guy. I like football. So
I was into all the sports as a kid, and then when I grew up, I had to focus on something, and being a Red Sox fan is really a big job. So that's
awesome.
Took up a lot of time, but yeah. So I wanted to be Joe Castiglione, right? I wanted to be the Red Sox radio announcer as a kid, but I eventually kind of picked up on, wow, I'm actually pretty good at writing, and so started getting published in the local newspapers, the weeklies that unfortunately are disappearing and have disappeared quite a lot. But anyway, so I was writing, and getting paid for it as a 14, 15-year-old, and just finding it so awesome. And so then I went to Boston University for journalism. And while I was there, I had a few different kind of gigs, part-time stuff, writing and actually getting paid for it, it's just so rewarding, when you can do that. One of those was for the Air Travel Journal, which was Logan Airport's newspaper. And so it was there that I got to know the national travel trades, the travel weeklies and BTN. And when I graduated in '95, I was hired by BTN. David Meyer, who was the editor at the time, gave me a shot. I had a ponytail. I was 22 years old. And he kind of introduced me to the business world. And everyone was like, who's that kid with the ponytail? But I got to know business travel. I moved to New York for that job. And a few years later, I took kind of a higher paying job at a wire service that is now part of Reuters. And I was only there for about 10 months, but it really helped me with speed, covering the stock market. You just have to be fast. And it was a real learning experience. And so while I was there, I started a little email distribution that I called Campbell on Airlines. And it was for just my friends in the industry. And it became a precursor for what became The Beat, which was my first startup, and that was in 2004. Eventually, I joined up with some ex-BTN colleagues, and we created a company that was sold in 2010 to what is now North Star, which owns Travel Weekly and Focusrite.
Wow.
BTN.
Okay.
And then I was there for a few years. I was editor-in-chief of BTN until 2013, kind of finished out my contract. And then David Jonas and I started the company Dime in 2014. So we just turned 5 last fall. And yeah, luckily it's working. I mean, we didn't know, but we had a lot of advantages just knowing the industry. So
I said before that I respect the paywall, but why the paywall? Why not go the route of having advertisers?
Well, firstly, if you have advertisers, you need salespeople, and so that just means more, overhead. We're elitists, and we're arrogant about the.
At least you're honest.
The separation of sales and marketing from, objective content, and so objectivity in the journalist's mind is a whole topic I'm fascinated by, maybe a different discussion altogether. But yeah, I mean, we just think that in business, there's room for a model where the beneficiaries can appreciate and pay for something that's independent of sponsorship. There's plenty of room for sponsored material.
Yeah, of course.
And the other thing is more of a practical matter, right? So like, the main media model is to have advertising alongside content. And if you're the New York Times, it's plausible that your reporters are not thinking about who's advertising. They're not influenced by that. It's just not plausible to think that in a company of 2 people, right? So
right.
It really just wasn't possible. On top of all of that, display advertising isn't exactly a growing market. And so where we sometimes have worked on content that has a sponsorship aspect, it's perhaps an event where there are sponsors, but the organizers of the event have asked us to come in and moderate a panel. We'll charge a fee for that. So there is a little bit kind of an indirect connection to that model. But we had these kinds of backup plans, in case the subscription thing didn't work. Maybe we'll do advertising, maybe we'll do these different things. And we had just this core supporters who jumped on our subscription in the beginning and just told us, no, don't do it. Stick with the subscription product. You can make it. They just really encouraged us, and we appreciate them keeping us honest.
If you don't have salespeople, how do you get the company Dime out there? Like what do you use social media? Is it word of mouth? How do you get everyone to know about the company Dime?
It's taken a long time. I mean, a big part of it was advantage that we had having been in the industry for so long, right? So by the time we started it, my partner David and I had both been writing about corporate travel for 20 years. And so we knew a lot of people. When we told them what we were up to, many of them jumped on. We had a subscriber before we even launched, found his way to our paywall and paid for it, so that was great. But that's just, your friends, that's just a portion of the market. And so it's a great question. We've actually struggled with this because, you're not going to find too many journalists who are also good at marketing. It's like they're opposites.
I don't want to impose my will, but you have such an incredible product. I looked on YouTube. There's nothing about the company Dime on YouTube.
Right.
You guys should be the face of. You guys should be on YouTube, having your own podcast and talking like Eric and I are. I mean, basically, you have such wealth and a wealth of knowledge in the travel industry.
Thank you. Yeah. I mean, that goes back to sort of the model, though. How do you monetize YouTube?
Right.
Yeah, but I mean, if you don't, the idea is not to monetize it.
That's his model, because then if he doesn't, then it's not. Then it's like he can't ride 2 horses. It seems like, right?
Well, it would be marketing, right? So I mean, we've done some things. We actually did have a podcast. We ran it for about a year and a half. Yeah.
Really?
How did that go?
It was great. We enjoyed it. I mean, it was really fun. I will say, there are a lot of. I'll just remember a former boss who wanted us, my team and I, to do video, and we kind of said, you do realize it's a completely different discipline. Like back in Boston University, like I didn't take classes for broadcast. I took classes for print. And, there's this notion that, you can do it in an amateur way and that's okay. And I think that's, to some degree, that is true, but it depends on your audience, right? And so our audience in corporate is generally more sort of buttoned up, They want
Readers.
things to be polished.
Right.
Well, right. And so I just think that, for us to address a corporate audience with a video or a podcast has to be good quality. Our podcast was okay. It was passable. I don't know if I could do video. I tried video,
Well, how many years ago did you do that?
Oh, the video? We did
Yeah.
try video in probably 2012 or so, and I'll never forget.
See, that was like, that's ancient now. You know what I mean? Like the technology that's out now. I mean, look at this platform. This thing's $19 a month.
Yeah, but
know
it
what I
wasn't
mean?
about the technology. We had good technology. It was our inexperience, right? So, in other words, we brought a camera to GBTA's trade show. We,
That's hard to do.
lined up interviews on the spot with people who are usually really comfortable talking and getting quoted, and they clammed up and they got nervous. And I didn't have the skills to like get them to chill out, So it was.
We tried
just a matter
doing
of
that.
training.
We tried doing that at one of our industry conventions in chauffeured car, and it was hard. We had someone follow us around with a camera, and it didn't work out as planned. It's much harder than it seems to like walk around on a floor and create video and edit it together and do that type of thing. This is much easier to do. Where you're just have a webcam or whatever, and then you're ready to go. But yeah, doing what you said about creating a broadcast and editing it all together, that's tough to do.
It is. And, you kind of have to respect the skill set and that you don't have it,
Yeah.
Like I figured out how to edit and polish audio. But it was just my own training. It was using Audacity, the free software. It was, like I said, good enough. But yeah. And the other thing is the models. And so it becomes a question of, is this worth our time? So for the podcast, for example, there was no way for us to charge a subscription. That would have been in keeping with our current model, but Apple specifically prohibits that. And so the only way to make money on a podcast, if you want to be in the Apple store, is to sell advertising. And again, just not, the ideal business model for us. So, it's good to dabble in these things. As a marketing tool, that's a different question. And that could be something we do someday. But to go back to Michael's question, how do we market? We really don't. I mean, the content kind of sells itself, right? So, especially with controversy like we've had recently, if you do it right, and you publish and you have respect, right, and then the followers and the readers will share, and it just sort of takes on its own marketing, and
Right,
so
right.
that's something we've seen very clearly. The more interesting the material, the more of a bump in subscribers that we get. I mean, it happens on the same day you publish something, you see new people coming in.
Right.
If it's like sort of your mediocre material, you get a lot of readers, and that's your existing people saying, I want to learn everything.
Yeah, we do that where we're like we post content every day, and it's our Okon Bros content. It's for our company BLS, and when you hit it right, you see the new followers, you see the new comments, but that's hard, very, very hard.
Social media,
consistently.
Social media to us, Jay, was foreign. It was completely foreign. When our father started the company, he kept a very tight leash on being private, right? Like he didn't want Eric and I out there. He didn't want us at trade shows. He didn't want us at conventions. We were at a few conventions here and there.
He liked the mystique of being like a private car service,
and it worked.
Mm-hmm.
It worked for many, many years, where we had our very our loyal clients who really liked what we were doing. And then he passed away two years ago, February 2nd, 2018. He passed away, and Eric and I had an opportunity to take BLS into the 2020s, is what we like to call it. And Eric
and how the 2020s have been.
It's
a firestorm.
It's
epic proportions,
to say the least. But social media to us has been really it's been the game changer that BLS, our car service, needed.
I've been meaning to ask Jay. So is LinkedIn the place where you go to launch your all of your posts, all of your articles, or do you do it on Facebook too and stuff like that?
Well, so we have a few different kind of distribution channels. We have our own email subscription. We do like browser notifications. So, it's optional, but you can have your browser tell you, oh, something's new on the company dime.
Right.
And then we really just put out a headline and a link on LinkedIn and Twitter. And even in LinkedIn, it's not just my feed and David's, but also a few groups. There's some groups we're part of. We'll post in there. We have nothing on Facebook, and it's been a debate, but going back to kind of early investigations into these channels, our understanding was that our business audience wants to keep their business on LinkedIn and their personal on Facebook. So it may change, but it's also, I just find Facebook to be extremely annoying. So that's part of it. I'm not personally much of a fan.
We've never, when Facebook was the craze back in, like 04, 05, 06, Eric and I were just too busy. We were working, we were married. We didn't want to be a part of that. And then even today, like, we're not personally on Facebook.
We do it just for business.
We do it just for business. But personally, like, I don't care. Like Eric and I, the joke is we don't care what our ex-girlfriends are doing. We don't care what our friends from high school are doing. If we want to talk to them, we would find them and talk to them. I don't need to know what they're doing on Facebook.
So you guys have the same ex-girlfriends. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Actually, we share everything together.
We share everything. Yeah. It's terrible. It's absolutely horrible.
So you mentioned controversy, and I think that the question is, with the shakeup going on at GBTA right now, where do you see GBTA going? When you broke the story, was there a debate? How was tell us that story.
Well, so it's a couple parts, I guess. Where I see it going, yesterday's news about Dave Hilfman coming in as interim CEO is about as good as they could have done on the first step. I think, and a big part of it is that right now their relationships with all the suppliers who put up most of the money for the convention and other activities, and also all the members are, those relationships are hurt. And so they're hoping Dave can come in and heal, bring people back into the fold, at least allow those supporters to give the organization, kind of the benefit of the doubt. Okay, we're not permanently out. We'll see. We'll see what you're going to do. But he has real challenges. The issues were not just about who is the executive director or what they call the CEO. It goes to some fundamental levels about how the organization operates. So one of our upcoming stories, possibly this week, more likely next, is an examination of the bylaws and the governance, and how, according to association experts, and there are a lot of those, right? There's an association for everything, and there are lifers who have been running associations of all different industries, and so they have a lot of perspectives. According to them, we've been talking to them for a good year now, this organization has a structure which is archaic. It has less than clear, guidelines about what the board is responsible for versus what the paid full-time staff and especially the CEO is responsible for. And so a lot of the issues that come from, for example, the board just being really micromanaging, getting involved in things that it's up to the manager to do. Whereas, like I say, modern membership associations that have revised their bylaws to kind of keep with the times and the realities of, the work life today, their boards are more oversight. They have a monthly meeting, they approve big picture things, but they don't worry about staff performance or the food at the convention or some of these other things that we've heard have actually been on their agenda. So, so that's a big part of it. So that fundamental stuff really requires an outside look, and so I think that's what they're going to plan to do is to bring in some expertise from outside the bubble and take a look and make recommendations. And then, because he's interim, I would imagine that a final step, if not, even soon, is to do a true executive search. So to find his replacement, not just be, a decision made in a couple of days, but a real search that, it's going to be a little bit expensive and but that's what you have to do. So
The timing of everything, and we generally are just talking from the supplier side because we go and we buy a booth and stuff like that.
I want to mention we also are very new at GBTA. We've only
Yeah.
been there for 2 years now. Since our dad passed, we went to GBTA once in the last 20 years.
So
And
we don't
then-
have that. We don't have the luxury of having legacy of having 20 years of going.
Mhm.
So on our side, recently we've had much more success at the smaller conventions, and the GBTA convention is the Super Bowl, right?
Yeah.
It's massive, and it's so
Right.
easy to get lost as a supplier when there's you got one shot. You build for it all year, and then you got one shot to go and try and make it there. When we feel that like the smaller conventions create much more opportunities because you can go to multiple, you see the people at those conventions multiple, and now with COVID-19, it's really ripe for innovation as far as how these conventions are run. What do you think? Do you think that it's still going to be the mega convention, factoring in COVID-19, factoring in the shakeup,
is the
factoring
mega
in?
is the mega convention dead? I mean, I got to tell you, we went to the San Diego was our first GBTA, right? That was 2 years ago, 3 years ago.
Mm.
For
Then we
you?
went to Chicago. Then we went to Chicago last year, and for the first 3 days, it was just standing in a booth, trying, trying to fish
But
people in. And
that was our inexperience with that too. We've
yes,
learned
but
more that it's about everything else but the convention.
correct. But when we sponsored a party, we sponsored the BTN Travel Manager of the Year party, and it was the BLS family, and it was everyone who was shopping on that floor was in one. It was this gorgeous Beauty and
One
the Beast
10,000
ballroom.
square foot room,
It
right?
was this gorgeous room, and it was the BLS crew and all the travel managers,
Yeah.
there walking around with, some had their tags on, some didn't want it. But, I said in a podcast recently that like I was able to talk to people because I saw where they were from. I don't want to say who this person was, but I met a lady there, and my son is obsessed with her product. And I said, my son buys your product every year. We buy it for him. But, so like, that would have never happened on the floor, because on the floor, it's like a needle in a haystack. You're
Yeah.
hoping people get to you. You're hoping people will walk by you. And it's like, then like, do you really want to talk to some guy, limo guy in a booth?
Right.
So the question is the big convention dead? Did COVID kill the big convention?
I mean, temporarily, for sure.
Yeah.
I think actually it killed a lot of things for now. We've been obviously very focused on this. What is the future of business travel? And you see a lot of absolute statements made in the media and on social media about, oh, it's never going to be the same. It's dead. These things, and usually those things are wrong, right? But we've seen this before, where video conferencing, for example, took off 10 years ago when they invented the telepresence suite, and everyone thought, oh, we're in trouble now. And I guess I would say, I would expect that in the long term, the near term is different, but in the long term, if there is a replacement for some trips, that just means volumes change, right? Maybe lower. But if there's business, if we're still doing commerce, if there's still an economy, right? Business travel is a function of that. It's not done for the most part for
100%.
fun, right? There is
100%.
there's some kind of extra business travel. There was a lot in the 80s, right?
Right.
less now, less and less. And this might kill it once and for all. I don't know, that sort of, I mean, the mileage runs that the frequent flyers do, like that's really, I mean, first of all, terrible for the environment, but also really, I mean,
Of
really, you're
course.
taking trips just to, but, I don't think that as a tool for conducting business travel has changed, right? And so it's just a matter of time. Now, if you have to wear a mask when you're in a meeting, maybe that's changed, right? You may just prefer to do that on Zoom. I was thinking the other day about how, you obviously can't wear a mask when you're eating lunch, right?
Mhm.
Well, so that's actually what the business meeting is always going to be for a while, right? Because everyone has the excuse of, I'm eating, I don't have to wear a mask, and now I can have a real conversation as well.
Right.
That was a traditional business meeting already. So we have our pockets of opportunity there, but companies are so concerned about the well-being of their people,
Mhm.
and and so careful now. Like the business travel that is happening is extremely controlled,
Yep.
manual processes, checklists, lots of information, just tremendous amounts of preparation. Like even that in itself is an inhibitor to any kind of trip that's not pretty much necessary, right? So, yeah, it's going to take a big hit temporarily, but I don't see how. Again, the value of networking, and going back to the conventions. I mean, those large meetings, conventions, you can't actually predict what you're going to get out of them. Michael,
True.
I hear what you're saying in terms of being overwhelmed. It is so overwhelming. I
Right.
can go into all kinds of tales about how.
Is that part of the archaic? Is that part of the archaic thing that you said, that the way it was run was archaic? But do you feel that like that big mega convention is archaic as well?
No, I was thinking more in terms of the governance,
Mhm.
the elections, how people are appointed or how they can volunteer for different things. More the association side of it rather than the convention. I mean, I think there are probably trade show organizers who have ideas about how things could be cool and different in the future, and maybe GBTA has or hasn't adopted those. But I don't think it's really that. Like people don't complain so much about the convention other than what you said, which is that it's overwhelming, it's huge. I never know if I got enough done. Like that's
Right.
all. That's kind of comes with the territory, right? I mean, I don't know how you're going to make that better.
But like,
Maybe there's.
if you want to play in that field, you got to go. Like there's no doubt about it. You have to go. You have to be involved, and you have to have your hitching post, so to speak.
Is there a company dime convention in the future? Do you see yourself doing that? Because you're a huge voice in the travel industry.
Yeah, it kind of goes back to the business model stuff. I mean, so when we started the Beat, it was just me at first, and then I sold it to a company. It's a lot of details, but anyway, we created an event alongside the Beat, and it's still going today. It's called the Beat Live, and so there is a natural connection between a publication and an event.
Right.
The trouble, though, again, is it's pretty tough to get people to pay enough money to attend that covers all of your expenses and maybe even gives you a little profit. So you need those sponsors. Again, it's like a tool in the kit, but we haven't pulled it out. Instead, what we've done a couple times is partner with existing organizations who run an event, and we'll do a little trade on like marketing. We promote their to our audience that we're appearing, for example, and we might run a session or two for them. But so the way we can support an event is on the education side. Where there are seminars, commentary, education discussion. That's where we would play. And I could see that. I could see us partnering. But like it's that show side of it, and especially all the advertising and sponsorship. We just don't even have the expertise.
It's a different business. It's a different business from what you're doing. So I know at the bottom of some of your articles you put that you're working on some type of show in conjunction with another association. So what exactly is that?
So that was actually just two things. One was a freelance work that we've been doing for the Association of Corporate Travel Executives. And so they have a community, an online community, and they enlisted us to provide content. So we, write up a couple of pages of like this week's developments and send it over to them. The other disclosure there is a trade show company that is looking at corporate travel. And so we've been involved in, basically, kind of as a sounding board to them, what are the opportunities, et cetera. There's no business underway. In fact, we just slightly changed the language to say that it was in the past because the conversations were going on and now have stopped. I don't know what their plan is, but it's really super preliminary if it's happening.
Right. Right. So based on, I mean, obviously you have you're on the pulse of what's going on in the business travel community. Based on that, when do you see the business travel coming back somewhat? Because it hasn't yet. There's no meaningful volume, and we're saying that from the supplier side. So
It
what do
definitely
you
picked up.
it picked up,
definitely picked up, but
a bit, but it's more along the lines of high net worth individuals, private aviation, those
some productions have been going on.
yeah,
Too.
some movie and TV and film productions. So where do you see corporate travel events next month, 2 months, 3 months, and on?
Yeah, that's the big question, right? Everybody's trying to figure that out. I mean, now we're in the summer period, which is usually slow anyway. I
Not
think,
this slow.
yeah, right, exactly, right. So if it's usually slow, now it's nothing.
Right.
And so, I mean, so here's what we hear from our corporate travel, kind of constituents, and we get a really nice picture from them because we have something we call the Buyers Council. We have basically every other week we have a conference call, and usually a couple dozen of them show up, and we share ideas and get them to tell us what to write about, and they
Awesome.
talk to each other. It's really fantastic. Um, I will say there are about 90 members in that group, and as far as we know, only one or two were laid off,
Okay.
and one's already back. And it was
Good.
sort of a partial thing anyway. So I think that's a really good sign that companies are saying, even though we're not traveling right now, we're not going to get rid of our travel person because we will, right? I think that's a really good sign. The volumes are terrible, right? Obviously, I think the TSA numbers now are like 25% compared to last year, but it's almost all leisure.
Yep.
You know, different industries are in different places, right? Obviously, if you work in heavy industry or something like that, you probably have to be on site for a lot of stuff. You can't do it by Zoom. So they're going to come back faster than others. Government might come back faster than some others. Energy, but I guess what I'd be concerned about most is companies like tech companies and consulting. Like, do you need to be on site if you're consulting? And that's a tremendous amount of volume for
Yes,
airlines and hotels. I
Sure.
mean, consultants travel like crazy. And I also wonder about, from what we hear from some of those consulting companies, there's this notion of automation for sales that hasn't really taken off because people tend to prefer face-to-face. Well, now is the time when some of that is going to come into play. And so, I don't know if that changes the equation. Anyway, it's a roundabout way of saying I don't really know the answer. It would be great if we had more leadership, from the public sector in terms of safe travel and coordination in terms of best practices for keeping the virus at bay. I mean, the fact that there's a political debate over masks is just unbelievable to me. It's
100%.
just unconscionable. Other countries are like, what is wrong with them? And this is a problem because the business travelers, like a lot of them, they want to get on the road, but they need to know what to expect and they need to know how to behave. And you just don't have a consistent set of procedures to follow at the moment.
From what I hold on one second. From what I saw, I mean, you'll see every day you see a new post from a travel manager, from a travel agent, from from a road warrior, and they document their journey, and they'll post it, and it looks really promising. And frankly, I believe on the operator side, we've been getting away with it far too long without having those disinfectant. The cars were
100%.
clean, the airplanes were clean, but they weren't clean. You know what I mean? And I think it's that COVID brought on the disinfecting era, and I think that's been long overdue.
Yeah, I mean, what's tough, really tough, is that some people are going to need what they think are guarantees, and there's no guarantee, especially if you look at like the lodging industry, right? I mean, you have owners, investors, operators, management companies, general property. I mean, it's too fragmented for like airtight procedures. So it becomes a matter of perception. Do I feel like I'm safe? And that's really tough to pinpoint, and it's going to change. It's going to get better and worse. I mean,
I'm shocked at specifically the ground travel industry. I can't say much for the airlines. I can't say much for the hotels. I believe they're doing an amazing job from what I've seen on LinkedIn, but I'm not an insider there. But for ground travel specifically, our industry has been silent. Nothing. Eric and I have been the loudest voices going on and promoting our service and saying it's safe to travel.
It's safe. It's safe to be driven.
It's safe to be driven, right? I mean, we came up with this thing called BLS Direct, which is city to city transfers, where we know airports are dirty places. I mean, there's no denying it. There's a million touch points, and you're in groups of people. So it was actually our mom that came up with this idea to transport someone from New York to Boston, for argument's sake. You got to get to the airport 3-4 hours in advance. It's a 45-minute flight, right? Like an hour flight, and then you have the transportation on either end. It's looking like a 6-hour ordeal just to go from New York to Boston. Where if we drive you, the car's disinfected. The driver went through a decontamination booth, so we know that his suit is 100% clean. We checked his temperature. We checked the cough, shortness of breath.
There's a divider in the car.
There's a divider in all of our vehicles nationwide, and even in London and Paris. And like our industry, they put a little disclaimer on their website,
or they'll post one video every 6 weeks, and it's not doing
it's not encouraging.
It's not doing the travel industry any service by not. You have to put out the good word. That's what's going to drive people to travel again.
And I got to tell you, we picked up some clients who are saying, yes, we only want dividers in the cars. And, we picked up clients who, see Eric and I on LinkedIn promoting this agenda, saying, it is safe to travel in a BLS car. We want you to understand that. And so far it's been working very well for us. The rest of the ground travel industry, Eric and I are the ground travel industry at this point, because no one's saying anything.
I mean, I think, to be fair, there have been some announcements of procedures and standards at other companies, but they don't have. So you would have had to have had proficiency in two areas which are not your core business to pull this off. One would be, like health and safety and sanitation. The other one would be like social media and like media and publishing, right, and broadcasting. You guys already had been working on the one. You brought in some expertise for the other. Other companies have to get up on both, and how can you actually make that work when you're not getting any revenue? You can't invest in anything,
That's true.
I will say, we're doing it. I'm doing it. I'm doing the editing. I'm doing the posting. Michael and I are doing. We're doing the talking. We're the ones doing it. I'm editing this podcast on my iPhone. Yes, before COVID-19 hit, I had an editor, I had a social media manager. They were all helping me. I was putting out way more content because they were helping me. But now I'm doing everything, because what choice do we have?
I mean, but you make it seem easy, right? I mean, let's admit, right? We just had a technical difficulty. We had to restart this show.
Yes,
right.
We did.
I mean, that's the kind of thing that makes people who are accustomed to this like really nervous. Like, what did I do? And it broke, and this isn't my expertise, So it's an interesting thing going on right now, the past 15, 20 years, where everybody can do like what I've been trained to do and others in my profession, and kind of watching the quality and what's okay. And then you have other questions about, the ethics of things that are posted on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter. I mean, it's a whole area of danger and risk. I could definitely understand why someone who's a ground transportation operator, that's their expertise, doesn't want to get into something like, oh, wait a minute, do I have to worry about defamation? These sorts of things, right?
Sure.
So, I mean, you guys are bold, and I think you deserve credit for it, for sure. I just wonder if it's fair to kind of pick on all those other guys for not having that.
Well, I love having your opinion on that.
Yeah.
Because that's what you do, and that's the company dime, and that's unbelievable that you're always going to play. You're going to report on the facts, not like Michael and I are 110% blubbering emotion. like that's who we are. We wear our heart on our sleeve, and we're gonna be like, "Mom, but we love you, and we are family," and like we're just gonna push that.
Right.
That's what we believe in. But you are so analytical, and you couldn't be doing any other thing than the company dime because of what you just said.
Right.
Okay.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it has been emotional for us, though. I mean, I'll tell you, it's
in what respect?
An extreme situation. I mean, when the Black Lives Matter protests were happening, I was completely locked up. I could not. I didn't. How could I write about business travel? Like,
yes,
exactly.
That's not relevant. No one cares.
Exactly.
I was absolutely useless for a few days. I finally kind of remembered. Wait, there's this other crisis going on too. Like, and people need to know about how to, get back to business travel, and the readers are. I mean, and that's we can kind of joke and make light of different things as we do in a broadcast like this, but I think it's important to remember that and acknowledge that people are really in a bad way right now. Whether it's, family members lost, they're sick, livelihoods have been devastated. So, I've always got that going, in the back of my mind. And so that's the emotional part. It's just kind of like, what it leads me to say, what else can we do to help
Right.
our audience when they're so hurt right now?
I got to tell you, when COVID happened, I wrote a book called Just Ask the Universe. I don't know, and I'm not like hawking my book here, but I wrote this book in 2011. It's 9 years, it's going to be almost 10 years old. And this book is still, after 9 years, in the top 100 most read books on Amazon and spiritual. It's helped people all over the world get the job they want, the spouse they want, the business they want, the sales they want. And it's my law of attraction. It's my love letter to the law of attraction, because Eric and I and our families ascribe to that ideology. And when COVID happened, there was so many different avenues that you could post on LinkedIn. Like, Eric and I are not salespeople. We're not like, use us. Use us. We're the best. We didn't want to come off as, like, we call them shoulder pad salesmen, guys who are completely, like what you said in the beginning of the podcast, archaic, right? Like they're shoulder pads in their suits because it looked good in the 90s, and they're so out of touch with what people are looking for today in the industry. And the idea of promoting a sales thing during this crisis, it felt wrong to us. So what I started doing is, I'm really big into quotes. I believe that, quotes leave clues, right? Success leaves clues, quotes leaves clues, by the most, famous people in the world. And I downloaded this app, and I take these quotes, these inspirational quotes of, like, if you're going through hell, keep going, Winston Churchill. That got like 2,000-3,000 views, and I don't even know how many likes. But if it could help someone, if it could inspire someone, I feel that we need inspiration now on social media, in journalism. That, yes, we need the facts, but we also need inspiration. And I think that what Eric and I did by putting out these quotes, and then on top of that, I think it was Memorial Day weekend. It was my birthday weekend, and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna name my top 10 favorite movies. So I did my top 10 favorite movies. There Will Be Blood, Rounders, Star Wars, the whole nine yards. And conversations started flowing. And it wasn't about travel, and it wasn't about COVID, and it wasn't about, anything that was happening that was, the world on fire type stuff. And people start, and I want to give people that break in the disaster that the world is today, of everything that's terrible, the leadership, everything that's horrible in this world today. I want to know what your top 10 favorite movie directors are. And people are writing, they're contributing, they're interested in this. And I think that's important in this day and age.
Would you ever consider doing something, I guess, off topic on the company dime like that? Or, I guess on the inspirational front,
Yeah, I mean, we've done a little bit. So early in the crisis, we published an article that we didn't put behind a paywall. It was about different sort of grassroots organizations that are there for people who've lost their jobs that they can tap into. It's sort of public service type stuff definitely is in the mix. I don't know if I would say it's a core piece of what we do, and in large part because a lot of our other travel industry publications will jump on that stuff, and because they're kind of like often trying as hard as they can to look on the bright side. We got a lot of grief. I shouldn't say a lot, but we got a little bit of grief early in the crisis when still a fair number of travel industry leaders were kind of like denying the potential impact, saying, oh, it's just like another flu. At that point, we published an article about one of the travel agencies that laid off like half its staff. We got a little bit of, oh, you're not, helping the industry with this. And we're like, yeah, right. But these are the facts. Like, I think, that's our main job, right? I mean, if there's an additional way that we can offer a little bit of entertainment, the break that you talked about, Michael,
right.
That is important. But others can do that as well. And so if we stick with what we're best at, which is the written word and getting facts that people can't find elsewhere, I think that's the best contribution we can make.
You're doing an amazing job at it. You really are.
Thank you.
And Eric and I, we stand behind you guys. And, when Eric said, I found this company, the company Dime, it's, pay for it and you learn about our industry. It was, it changed the way we looked at it.
Wow.
You know,
No, because it really does bring us value because it brings us insight on what everyone else is thinking, and that's so valuable. Because we had a podcast a few weeks ago where basically the theme of it was we don't know what we're doing. Like
no, nobody does.
everyone is navigating uncharted waters right now. January 2020, yeah, we knew what we were doing. We knew the trajectory. We knew everything that we were doing. Trajectory. I'm sorry. We
Yeah.
were opening up in London. Yes, Big Brother. So we
Editor. He's
were.
an editor.
Yeah, Michael is. I can't write for
I just
nothing,
want to
so
mention I didn't want to like Eric. Don't lose your train of thought. But I got to tell you,
too late.
Jay, I was the entertainment editor for my school newspaper, and it was one of the proudest jobs. I majored in English, so I've read every, like what you're talking about. Journalism is like up my wheelhouse. Like really, really great stuff. I have tremendous respect for journalists, and especially ones that report the truth. That's what I did in college when I was head of the
You
paper.
wrote about you wrote about
Nice.
movies that you liked, Michael.
I wrote about movies I liked and concerts I went to, but it was still, I was able to help. Well, I always believe in helping. And if it was able to help a local band sell more CDs, right? CDs back in the late 90s were the
Mhm.
rage. If it was to help a local store, like there's a store called Utopia in Hicksville, which sells, vintage shirts and records and everything. If it was able to help them, that's
So,
that's what I would have done. But go ahead, Eric.
I want to get back to we're all in uncharted waters, and to fake that you actually know what you're doing right now. Um, you know, it's no one knows what tomorrow is going to bring. And now with literally the world was shut down, right? That
Yeah.
means anything can happen. Just
Yeah.
anything could happen.
It
Do you
really is
think? Yeah.
scary about in that way, isn't it? We kind of, I don't know about you guys, but sometimes I'm just going about my day and then I remember, like I forgot
Yeah.
for a few moments and then I remember, like, oh yeah, that's right.
We're in a crisis. We're in a crisis. Do you feel? I don't know if this is an appropriate question, but do you feel the election is going to have any impact on travel? Do you feel that the upcoming presidential election is going to have an impact? Is it going to make it worse? Is it going to help it? Like, what do you think is going to happen with that? That's
That's
not
a
a
great question.
thank you.
Yeah.
That's not a Democrat Republican thing. That's is it going to get better? Basically, is the election going to be impact travel?
I mean, I think if at the most basic level, there seems to be pretty strong agreement that the current administration has not handled the crisis well.
Yes.
And so I guess if he loses, then there's hope that the next administration would do better, right? So
anything could happen. Who the hell knows at this point?
Right.
You don't. I think what you don't have is, traditionally, in terms of ideology, you would have maybe some business interest nervous about an incoming Democrat, right? Like that's tends to be. I'm not. I'm not an expert in all this, but it's a pretty basic statement, right? And I don't think that appears in this case. So
yeah, because honestly, with what happened, who cares? At this point, I mean, what? So the tax bracket is going to change. I mean, we nearly, the travel industry nearly lost everything.
They did. They did lose everything.
Yeah, we're starting from zero. Michael and I would always make a joke, man. We wish that we started a podcast, and we started documenting our journey from ground zero. Well, we got it. So that just shows be careful what you wish for, because we were knocked down to zero, nothing.
When our parents started BLS in their kitchen 50 years ago, and Eric and I were there. Eric and I had a front row seat, but we didn't start it. Right? Like it was our dad's brainchild to start a luxury ground travel service based out of New York. And you fast forward 50 years and we're in 10 cities and we're all over the world and all that stuff. And it was always a piece of Eric and I saying, God, I wish we would have started it, and technically we are now, where we went down, literally BLS went down to zero.
Yeah.
And now we're building up again. And I got to tell you, I don't know if this is my positive mental attitude, but I always had faith that we were going to come back. Not our entire industry.
Never a question.
Never a question. And that's how our mother raised us. That the glass is half empty, half full. We really feel that that we're going to bounce back, that travel is going to come back. And it's leaders like yourself that's reporting the news, which, we commend you for doing what you're doing, because no one else would.
No, to be fair, there are other great publications in the industry.
There are, but Jay broke some breaking news that a lot of other companies didn't.
Yeah, we kind of have to. Why would you pay to subscribe if you could read it somewhere else? But thank you very, very much. I mean, that's, yeah. What I want to also add though is that for any journalist, I mean, we get sort of more of the credit than we deserve, and also more of the blame. A lot of the times, it's kind of like we're the messenger, right? So shoot us, or give us gold, but we don't necessarily deserve it. And I just want to recognize the whistleblowers and the brave sources. I mean, I've talked to a lot of people who were really afraid of lawsuits and even worse. Sure. And they said, you know what, enough is enough. None of that would have happened without them.
Change comes from the people that want to make an impact. I mean, I watched Hamilton twice this weekend, and what this country did to escape Britain, I mean, I couldn't have done that, right? I couldn't have created a country, because these guys were according to Britain, the rebel rousers, right? They were the ones who were, they were going against the grain. They were fighting a revolution.
The trailblazers.
They were the trailblazers, and it's it's people like you that are the trailblazers in travel.
Well, thank you. That's some real high praise.
It's the truth, though, and
I've never owned slaves, so
no.
There's that.
No, I was never.
That's going to be the name of this. That's going to be the name of this podcast.
No,
Jay Campbell has never. No,
no. No, but I was going
to. You can leave it to me to throw cold water on anything that's
seriously, you are a wet blanket. You are a total wet blanket. But I was trying to give you praise, and somehow you misconstrued it. That I was saying that you were I'm not even saying those words because they're wrong on every level. But anyway,
I watched Hamilton this weekend also, and there is a lot of context that you pick up there that you wouldn't have picked up on, and there was even critics that there's not enough of it. So anyway,
I mean, of course, Disney knew that though. Of course, Disney knew that it was the perfect. It was the perfect weekend to put that out.
That's true, but Disney made changes to Splash Mountain, which was my favorite ride at the parks, because Song of the South romanticized slavery, and it was wrong. So they're changing it now to the Princess and the Frog ride, and we're thrilled. We love the Princess and the Frog, but change has to be made when enough voices are heard.
Yeah,
and that's what Hamilton was about, and that's what I was likening it to, not likening you.
I hear you.
The other thing, which
now I'm just thinking about being on Splash Mountain. How fun would that be right now?
Seriously,
are you a Disney? Are you a Disney guy?
Disney guy?
I was not for many years. I resented them because what happened? They acquired ABC, right? And I was just like, no, a media company and an entertainment company. But that was when I was in my early 20s, and so nowadays I do appreciate them. Been a couple times. The rides are great. The way they operate it is unbelievable.
The greatest company in the world.
So top notch. So I have a new respect.
Yeah.
So what I wanted to move on to was your influences. Did you have mentors, influences? Are you a Tony Robbins guy? Are you a law of attraction person? Or is it just innate in you? Or do you not believe in the law of attraction, which is fine. I mean, just generally, that's one of our core beliefs, and that's what drives a lot of our success. So, mentors, books, movies, that whole thing.
What drives you?
Sure. That's a great question. I mean, I guess I would say, one thing some people are surprised to hear is that we don't read business books. I have referenced them once in a while. I've used them for research at times, but I get enough of it all day. I just kind of, I have to have some other kind of entertainment or, other kind of written word in my private time. I mean, I guess that, as far as some sort of inspiration, there was a columnist for the Boston Globe called Mike Barnicle. I don't even know what he's up to these days. He ran into some controversy, but anyway, he was a great read when I was a kid, and of course also all the guys who covered the Red Sox, and some of them are still the same guys as when I was, following them as a kid. But also, of course, the editors who gave me a chance. I mean, I was 14 years old and I walked into like a little newspaper and they're like, who's
Amazing.
So, just a handful of different editors of local papers who said, sure, I'll give you $25, if you, give me 500 words on the school meeting or whatever, and so, a lot of them really got me started. So yeah, I mean, I don't know if I'd call them inspirations, but definitely kind of facilitators to where I got today.
Well, you
That's
make
incredible.
you make the company dime look easy. And so like
Yeah.
how long does like an article take for you to write? I mean, or does it vary? I mean, because you have to have sources, you have to have all that. So like what's involved with an article?
There's a really wide variance. So, Michael, I don't know if you remember from some journalism training, but there's a set of aspects to newsworthiness, right? So like timeliness would be one, proximity, relevance is a really important one. And so those change depending on the story. So for example, yesterday's article about Dave Hilfman coming in to be interim CEO at GBTA, really a straight breaking news story. It did not take a lot of time. We got a couple of the facts. We knew it was relevant and obviously really important to our audience. Right. And so we still tried to add value by pulling together some commentary about him. So it wasn't just like a rewritten press release, although I don't think they put out a press release. That's on one end of it, where it's sort of, I wouldn't say easy, but it definitely helps when it's just a small set of facts that are really important and exclusive. You can kind of turn that around pretty quickly. So that's like within half a day kind of work, and some of them are even shorter.
This is, how am I going to phrase this question? Eric and I, we believe in good vibes. We believe in never bad mouthing anyone. Again, we're big believers in the law of karma. What you put out, it comes right back to you. Are you ever scared of writing something down and having it come back to you in a bad light? Like, were you scared of putting out that article about the GBTA? Was that, or did you feel that, I mean, you obviously did it, but like, were you ever hesitant? Were you nervous? Because I know that's something that Eric and I, we couldn't do.
Well, I mean, so I talked about the kind of the aspects of newsworthiness. There's another guiding principle. It's a set of ethics that we have actually published on our website. And among those, I guess I would call those tests, right? So you take your facts, you kind of run them through the journalism process and, make sure that, that you've corroborated them, to the best of your ability, you believe they're accurate, et cetera. And then you also take it through a lens of these kind of ethical tests. And one of them would be, in this case, the harm. What harm is being done? And, one of the guiding principles is to minimize harm. And so, we do make those decisions like, okay, so not only for the subjects involved and what could be harmful to them or their colleagues or families, but also for the audience and also for us, and so it is all part of what's considered when it's that controversial. I mean, very few, close to none of our stories have ever reached that level. Maybe 5% or something end up having to go like, because it's innate, except in an extreme example where we go like, oh, let's just review the ethics guidelines again, double check on that. Most of them are, product news. I mean, M&A. I mean, a lot of it is pretty straight up business information that's not going to hurt anybody. But yeah, there's a whole thought process on all that.
Has your subscription base grown? I'm sorry if you're not done yet. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to finish answering the previous question, which is on the other end of the extreme, we have what we would call like news analysis or even features, and these are not something that just happened, right? It's not news, but it's an area of the practice or the discipline that we want to offer some education on, and it requires a ton of phone calls. And so like on the other end, so I talked about just a few hours for like the quickest of the stories. On the other end of the extreme, one of us might spend 3-4 whole days on something, and that's just because in order to make some definitive statements and be most helpful to the audience, we just have to talk to so many people and get so many and a diverse, set of sources of information. So,
I commend you for breaking the news. I really do.
So
Yeah.
has your readership grown through through COVID-19?
it has. I mean, we're not, since we don't sell advertising, we don't really talk much about the user numbers on our website. If you do sell advertising, you have to share that information. But I will say, in the last few months, we've had our kind of top most record-breaking months in terms of page views and users, and June was off the charts. I mean,
Good.
April was our best month ever, and
Mhm.
that was crisis content. June with
Right.
the GBTA thing doubled it. I mean, it's insane. And that's great. I mean, I just think of it as helping us in the long term continue to do what we do. Hopefully, those people will stick, and they weren't just around for the controversy.
Right. As a journalist, how do you feel when they call it fake news? Like, what's your reaction when someone goes, "Oh, that's fake news" or whatever? As a journalist,
Is fake news a problem?
yeah, like, I'm curious to know, because this is fascinating that we have an actual journalist on our program. What's your reaction to that? Like, sound off.
Yeah, like, I mean, it's interpreted so many different ways. I don't entirely know how to answer, right? I mean, I think that just in terms of the merit of the notion, yeah, there's plenty of content out there that's wrong,
Right.
and
Right.
there is a lot of bad journalism. I mean, I
Mhm.
totally get that. There's a lot that's, one of the goals, one of the choices of goals is advocacy. It gets into an area which is a little bit difficult because it's a gray area with opinion. And as a publication, are you properly labeling, right, opinion versus news? But there are some entire publications or entire news networks who are about advocacy, and they don't even try to hide it, right? And so, is that fake news? Maybe. I mean, if you asked me 10 years ago, I would say the Daily Show was fake news, right? That's like
Right.
literally news that's
Right.
fictionalized.
Right. Right. Right.
Even though a lot of facts come through, and educated opinions, you get those. So yeah, I mean, I think fake news bothers me because it comes from, at least most recently and most popularly, from the president, who is just at war with information. He's at war with
100%.
facts, and so that does bother me, and it's a bigger picture thing that doesn't affect us every day like it would the Times,
Mhm.
but it does, and it's come into our world. We were Scott Salambrino called us fake news. We quoted him as saying that in a
Really?
survey, responding to us, like directly to us, stop printing fake news. And we're like, which, let us know
Right.
which is fake. We're happy to. That's a big part of it too. If you're in this profession, you have to be ready to fix your mistakes.
100%.
And I think if you're seeing a publication that never has corrections, you might be looking at fake news.
Mhm.
Because we don't get it right all the time. It's just not
Right.
possible.
Yeah, but nobody does. That's
Right.
that's life.
Right.
You live and you learn.
Right.
The smart learn.
Yes.
So
Yeah, I mean, the fake news thing, like I say, there's a little bit of merit to the general notion, but the way it's been used recently, it's like a weaponized term. And why an elected official would not appreciate the role of the free press, I mean, it just shows a lack of understanding about the Constitution and the fundamentals of
Mhm.
a democracy. It's so baffling.
It's amazing what you just said. It's amazing how so eloquently you said that.
I just made it up too. It was.
But you do feel there are outlets out there that are just kind of exacerbating issues. I'm not saying, you guys, but like in general, media outlets that are making things worse than others, right? It's so divisive today, right? With the news outlets.
Oh yeah. No, I mean, I put quotes around news when I say Fox News. It just isn't. Like there are some journalists there who seem to be trying, and sometimes there are reports that seem to be real, but like the obviously the commentary, they're just not seeking a diversity of inputs and views, and there's an agenda, and so it's somewhere that was not predicted, when the principles of journalism really came into the modern era, and so I mean, I wish I could say it didn't matter, but they've had tremendous influence.
But ultimately, I mean, it's all going to come out in the wash. The truth shall set you free.
I'm gonna tell you. I'm gonna tell you what one of my favorite quotes from Floyd Mayweather. Okay, Floyd Mayweather Jr., the 50-0 Floyd Mayweather, Floyd Money Mayweather. Okay, he said there's two things that make the world go round: money and controversy. And I think a lot of news outlets they live off of that.
Play on that. Yeah.
They play on that. That the more controversial they are, the more eyeballs they're going to get. And like the way you said about Fox News, like Eric and I are not pro or against. Eric and I are neutral in that respect. But the idea, what you're saying, that there's some outlets that they're not news. We do agree with that.
Right. I mean, it goes to the business model, which is, and a lot of times people forget these are all businesses, right? With the exception of, NPR and PBS and maybe I forget, but maybe the BBC, right? Like
Associated Press,
yeah, publicly funded, very neutral.
Right.
If you're a business, there's a lot of latitude to do a lot of things. And today, I mean, you can come up with content of all sorts, right? And if it drives your business model, maybe you're not as concerned about like where you came from, which was more of a true news point of view.
Right.
I think it's, I remember, so I was in, at Boston University in the early 90s when the browser and the internet really just first started coming into mainstream life. And I'll never forget, I took a class on foreign correspondence in China, which was taught by like a really esteemed former New York Times journalist. And the first day he goes, you know what? I have something more important to teach you guys. Drop the course if you want. We're going to talk about the internet. And we were like, what? What is that?
Wow.
And he just threw out the China thing. A bunch of people left, and I stayed. Sure. And we were like using the early Netscape browser. And he just wanted to teach us about this because it was going to have such an impact on our profession. Mm-hmm. And I remember, I don't remember if he said it or if I just sort of came away from school with this impression that, as this evolves, it could go one of two ways or both. And it was, good in that people, especially in rural areas, will have access to much more information from a lot more places, right? If you lived in a rural middle America place, right, traditionally you had, kind of like one newspaper, maybe two from a nearby city, small city. You had, like a couple radio stations and, your three network news channels. And that was like really it, right? Mm-hmm. And so suddenly with the internet, you can get everything. And that could be really good because you're going to get a lot of different views. The other side of it, though, was that you also can now control where you get your content and really kind of create your own bubble, and put yourself into a place where you're really only listening to the people you already agree with. And I'm afraid that both, like I was concerned it would be far to the wrong side there. I think both have happened. And I don't know which side is winning. I'm afraid that the part where basically everyone is listening to the people they agree with has too much power right now. And we're seeing it with this fake news stuff and all this. Like sometimes I'm sure you guys wonder, like, how are they behaving that way? Or how are they saying those things? Don't they see the same things I do that are going on in the world? And and actually they don't, because they're using only this set of sources of information. So it's a scary time in kind of the evolution of media. I mean, to be too depressing about it, but
no, it's the truth. I mean, if you want to get like, it strengthens you if you join Twitter, right? I know that Company Dime is on Twitter. I'm on Twitter. I'm a writer. I'm an author. I've written 20 books, and as a in addition to the self-help book, but I have a full representation. I have a manager, an entertainment attorney, and I'm on Twitter to promote my books and whatnot and be like that author celebrity. Nothing to do with BLS. And you see both sides of it. I'm following people on the left and I'm following people on the right. And some things I agree with the left and some things I agree with the right. And there's no, to me, there's no, you're either all in this way or you're all in that way. That's just me, like if you feel differently, that's cool. But it's definitely Twitter can break you. If you go and follow everything that you want on Twitter, you get that rallying cry.
You're going to be really deep into your echo chamber.
That's exactly right. That's why I like to follow a little bit of everybody, because you make your own decisions, you make your own opinions on things.
That's what the news is all about.
That's exactly right. That's exactly
Well,
right.
I think what we'll see, if we're progressive about it, what we'll see is education about consuming information. It's begun. There are programs out there, and it's probably mostly at the collegiate level, but I think it'll go down into high school and grade school as well. This is a skill, just like home ec, or how to balance a checkbook. I mean, learning how to decipher information and what to trust and how to question things is like actually a life skill now that more people need. Yep. And so I think hopefully that'll spread throughout the education system. I don't know how long it'll take. Obviously now it's a little bit disrupted, but yeah.
Well, I think we went off a little there, but I think it was good. Did we cover? I guess we did cover future of business travel. I think, Mike, do you have any other questions? Because I think I'm all set, unless you have anything else.
I do, and probably this is the most important question that I've been wanting to ask you for a few weeks now, Jay.
Okay.
Top 10.
I feel like I should get ready for this.
Top 10 sports franchises of all time, in your opinion. Go.
Top 10 sports franchises?
Yeah, like your favorite sports teams.
I'm like not anymore a big enough sports guy to really be able to answer this properly.
Go movies then. Top 10 favorite movies. Top 10 favorite movies.
Go do top 5. It's easier.
Top five
favorite movies of all time.
Well, okay, so let me see. Stand By Me.
Definitely.
I really liked JFK.
Oh my God. Yeah, that's in my top 10 in the 90s. 100%.
You think?
I have that screenplay.
Shawshank Redemption.
Yeah, of course.
Agreed.
Let's see. I believe it or not, I'm not as big a fan of the Godfather series as a lot of people.
Interesting.
I'm going to put this on record. I don't like Star Wars. But that's just
bro,
me.
Sign off. Bro, sign off. I'll finish up with Jay.
I never got it. I'm more of a Lord of the Rings type of guy. But Star Wars wasn't for me.
I mean, in that genre, since you mention it, I always liked The Wrath of Khan, the Star Trek one.
Yeah, our mom was a huge Trekkie.
I was not a big Trekkie, but that particular movie was like, I like the disturbing ones. So like with the Star Trek, Empire Strikes Back to me is easily the best one.
You live your life. You live your life on a lot of edges. I gotta tell you, if there's an edge, Jay Campbell's gonna find that edge and just peer over a little too far.
Yeah.
So that's 4. Give me 5. What's the 5th one? 5th movie that it's on TV and you're going to watch it. You're going to stop everything you're doing to watch it because you've seen it.
No, that's actually something I hardly ever do. I generally don't watch or read something I already did. I don't know why that is. Yeah, like I had friends who would have like piles of DVDs. I'm like, why? What's the point? So so that's why I can't like come up with lines from movie,
All right.
etc. I don't know why, but I guess Usual Suspects comes to mind. That was one I liked.
Classic. The director of that is in some deep hock now.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. You should look into that. Look into the director of The Usual Suspects.
Write an article on that and put it.
Is there a travel management?
That's not travel. That's not travel related. That's a whole other sport. That's not even the same ballpark.
We do have some travel managers for the studios, right? So, maybe they're dealing with this mess. Who knows?
Yeah.
Good to know. All right, I'll check it out.
Thank you, Jay. Hold on, Eric. Where can everybody find you? Where can everyone sign up? Where can are you on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook? Tell everyone in the Okon universe where they can find you.
Yeah, everything's on thecompanydime.com. So from there you can find our social channels, etc. So THE company dime like the coin.com.
Love it. Jay, you were an amazing guest, and we really appreciate you taking the time to talk with us. And we hope you had a good time. We hope,
you guys are great hosts. Yeah, thank you so much. It's been really fun.
Thank you, Jay. And like, subscribe, comment, and share, everybody. I'm going to do the sign off now. Hang out for 2 seconds, Jay.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.